Coke or Pepsi? Android or Apple? Xbox or PlayStation? Dogs or cats? Hey team, how you going? It is Cas from the Trenches with Cas, and this is about to be episode 1 of Questions of Cas. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to me? I'm opening my ears, they're substantial, to allow you to be able to converse with me as something been chapping your ass. Has something really been getting to you, and you never seem to have a platform in what you can float the idea. Have you got such a politically correct crowd of family, friends, your area of influence that you can't discuss serious matters? Well, this is your place. This is your time. This is your chance. Something's chapping one bloke's ass, and his name is Bill. And Bill is going to be the first question of Questions of Cas, and here we go. Get ready to answer. Get ready to listen. Get ready to respond, because your question might be next. What do you got to say, Bill? I'll tell you what I've got to say, Cas. It goes something like this. Hey, Cas, I'll give you something to think about. Do you think that officers, commissioned officers, whether it be lieutenant all the way up to major general or commander of the ADF, be charged like an employer under the OH&S Act, Occupational Health and Safety Act, come down here, buddy, for decisions that cost lives unnecessarily? There are many examples. Tarawa Island, World War II, 18 to 19-year-olds, US Marines were slaughtered because the brass didn't take into account the tide that went out and left landing craft stranded on a reef 500 metres from the objective. The Japanese had them in crossfire, just mowed them down. Their parents at home put trust in these superiors to bring their boys back alive, or at least have them die for a worthwhile cause. What do you think, Cas? Well, Bill, I think that's a fantastic question. And coming from the father of a military member, it's very important. No one puts more onto the plate than parents, because the actual soldier himself is a volunteer. He wants to be there. Parents don't volunteer their children to serve. Stay down, son. So, the question is a good one. My answer would be no. I do not believe there should be investigations into these officers, and where there is clear and present negligence, there actually already is. Incidents. There is response teams that come out, especially in the asymmetric warfare that we currently do now, and investigate situations. But in saying that, as a veteran myself, and we are a volunteer, there's one thing we have to be careful of. In the statute of limitations, in the saltwater/freshwater between civilian and military, an understanding of missions, an understanding of sacrifice, the cost of going into the fog of war, understanding that there is a commander versus a commander. Negligent killing. Is it negligent losses of our own through the decisions we make, or negligent killing of enemy, civilians, non-combatants and combatants unnecessarily? Attacks that don't need to happen. Dresden. 35,000 civilians die in a carpet bombing, a firebombing of Germany at the arse end of the war, where it made no difference. Okay, whether it be the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, whether it be the attack on the Gallipoli Peninsula, where 60,000 Australians went in, 8,159 didn't come out, 665 died, okay, from disease. Not many people knew about that. What about potentially negligence, not listening to intelligence with Nui Dat, where they went out into the rubber plantations, a company of Australian infantry, the Delta Company 6 RAR, but then met up with regiments of Vietnamese. Okay, sure, we lost 17 and killed nearly 1,000 of them. Okay, and that's classed as a victory. Well, lucky at that time. What is an unnecessary death? And is it theirs or is it ours? And who makes that determination? And how far back do we go? You've got to be very careful when you play with the wool. Because when you start pulling on a thread, all of a sudden, a victory, something we're proud of Kokoda, whether it be Gallipoli, the withdrawal, whether it be the charge at Beersheba, okay, whether it be the Tobruk, the rats of Tobruk, they were left. That was a standing patrol. Okay, a blocking force, a delaying force. They were told to stay there until you die or win. And that was against Rommel, an undefeated general, the Desert Fox. You got to let sleeping dogs lie. Volunteers clash with volunteers. It's called war, the chaos. You can't control it. It's easy to look into it years later, to be able to extrapolate it and say, but they could have done this, they could have done that. But as those days, they didn't have the mobile phone. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have the Bureau of Meteorology. They had balloons in the air. Nothing was certain. Commanders were fighting commanders, peer-based warfare. We can step around and we can look at a place and say, what about Rwanda? Okay, well, we didn't lose a single soul, but observed the death and the murder of tens of thousands and did nothing. Where does the negligence start? And where do the orders start? And where do they cross over? And who's accountable? Would you rather that a little bit of propaganda is tied to the loss of your son? Okay, was there actual intention that led to the death of your child or your loved one, or a unit, or a call sign? Nothing is as clean cut as you'd imagine. The chaos of war, it asks questions of you. What are you willing to do to win? What is the price in bullets, in resources, in water, in money, in lives, in blood? What's that price? If you're going to investigate, who's going to investigate? If I was to say to the people that said people got killed needlessly under your command, and you were to say to them, okay, thank you, Rommel. Thank you, Napoleon. You weren't there. What would have you done instead? And you'd better have a solution, not just a whinge. Parents will get away with it. Parents will get away with it because they are too attached to the loss of their child. Maxie Wales, the Battle of Long Tan. His family never got over it, and that was a victory. Okay, the defence of Kokoda. We lost over 600 men, but that was a victory. And it prevented the Jap from coming onto Australian soil. I don't think they were going to do it anyway. But it prevented it. It was a victory on our doorstep. There is so many cases where you could dig deep into, where you could look at Villers-Bretonneux, 1,200 dead in one night on a night attack against entrenched German forces in a town in France. There was classes of victory, kicked the German out, the Hun, and now the French even fly the Australian flag and sing our national anthem. Where does neglect start? Victory or defeat? Should the commander go down with the losing troops after H hour commences when he can't get any more orders out? Should he go down to the trenches, step on a bayonet and make sure he joins his men? Go down with them, what you'd expect a captain to go down with the ship, so to speak, except the Costa Cordian. He accidentally fell into the lifeboat, one of the first in there, and took warm weather gear in his wallet and car keys. What is the role of a commander? Tactical commander, strategic commander. Their role is to win. That's what their job is to do. It's just to win. But there's a cost. And that cost is not determined by the private soldier, or by the platoon sergeant, or by the lieutenant. It's determined by the top, by the mission statement. Once you've gone so far in, you have to commit to that plan. Otherwise, you'll lose more. If you balk, if you choose freeze, if you stand still. Tactical dilemmas will be presented to you by an enemy that is trying to attempt to circumnavigate your plan with his. The better tactician on the day will win the day. I think it was Napoleon that said there is one thing sadder than a defeat, and that is a victory. Or that might have been Wellington. Correct me if I'm wrong. Another thing we need to consider, team, is when it's time to go on the pitch and we ready our forces, our A-team, and we send them out there to bat. They've got to have all of their attention facing forward. Letters can go backwards, so can phone calls, so can money. But all of their attention should be on where the enemy is, the threat is. They should never feel like the threat is coming from behind them. Like there is cameras, embedded crew, media that are there to pick over their bones of who comes back to try and find fault despite the fact they might have come home with a victory. Let's let them do their job. Let's not be the silent critic. And team, just remember, the commanders are volunteers too, right? You can put a name on every loss of every soldier. You can do that. Whether he's KIA, whether he's MIA, missing action, or whether he comes home and he's broken for the rest of his life. Okay, but we're all volunteers, and we go there willingly. Would you investigate them? Is it worth the investigation? How far back would you go? Who would be their jury? It better be their peers, because it has to be someone that understands. All right? That's a great question from Bill. Well, let's see what question comes up next. Tell me in comments what you think below. What's your angle? Baby, what's your flavour? Let me know. This is episode 1 of Questions of Cas. And I look forward to what you put on the table as we bisect your question so that you can go away from there with either a second opinion, a second course of action, or you can double down on what you think. It's up to you. It's your thoughts. I'm not here to change your thoughts. I'm here to just put something else on the table. Counter argument, if you will. What's your question? 100 words or less. Put it in comments below, and I'll make a video on that for episode 2. It's all up to you. I hope you enjoy. Tick like or dislike, and you comment below. Get as angry as you want. I don't care. It's up to you. And thanks, Bill. You're a legend. My middle name's Bill too. Cheers, bud. And thanks to all those that serve. Good on you. Get down. The real question of the day is, who's your daddy?